Hi children, I've returned from the mountain and I brought you a cool new swatching video. Speaking of cool, now that I'm back home, I'm sweating. I'll be right back. Whew, much better. Holo Taco just released their new Underglow collection featuring 6 iridescent micro shimmer shades perfect for the winter. Today I'm going to be swatching, reviewing, making some comparisons, and maybe even some nail art with the new collection, so let's get into it. And before we begin, I wanted to show off the collection box. I don't know how Christine managed to do this, but she even got the underglow into the box itself. It color shifts from a super reflective baby blue to pink and orange at extreme angles. And if you're a Holo Taco collection box aficionado like myself, this one may be a new favorite, especially when you compare it to some of the other winter collection boxes that may be mostly hidden at the back of my Holo Taco shelf. And while you're enjoying some B-roll of Titan in the box, I wanted to point out that like 74% of my watch time is from people who aren't subscribed, so be sure to subscribe to not disappoint Titan. Now on to the swatches. I split the 6 polishes into 2 sets of 3, and first up is Moon Lagoon. Holo Taco describes this polish as a light aqua green jelly base with a pink micro shimmer. Since all of these polishes are jelly bases, they did take several coats to get to full opacity. That said, I do have horrendously stained nails from all of my nail painting, so your results may differ from mine. The base color looks more baby blue to me, but when compared to the other light blue polish in this collection, it does look more teal. The pink micro shimmer is very subtle, and it gives it this soft pearlescent touch, which is a commonality of these 3 polishes, and for this one, it does make me think of mermaids. It did take 4 coats to get to full opacity, so the next set of 3 polishes, I did add a layer of pink smoothing base to help out. Moving on, we have Swan Song. This is described as a buildable white jelly base with a blue micro shimmer throughout. You can see the blue micro shimmer the best in the first layer because of the darker color of my stained nails, and it becomes more subtle as the white was built up. This one was very challenging to film as the white balance on my camera was fighting for its life as I added more layers of polish. Overall, I'm a big fan of white polish, even though I don't get to wear it as much. I think that white polish is very versatile, as it can be a standout color when you're wearing something dark, or pull a little more bridal as well. For this specific polish, the white base is ever so slightly gray leaning, and the blue shimmer is a nice touch that will surprise you when it shows up in certain lighting. I found this one buildable in 4 coats. And last up is Cloud 9. Holo Taco describes this polish as a light baby pink jelly base with a cyan micro shimmer. I'm gonna be honest, I'm not a big fan of pink polishes. For me, it's not a color that I turn to. This one specifically feels very flesh colored on me, which isn't my vibe as I like my nails to stand out. I will say the cyan shimmer is a really nice touch, though it doesn't read very well on camera, but you can see it in the macro shot later in this video. Like before, the shimmer does make a pearlescent sheen on the polish, which is a super nice touch, and while the polish isn't for me, I know there are people out there who are going to love this one. I found it buildable in 3 coats. And because these polishes are jelly, I wanted to see how they blended while making a full hand manicure with these 3 colors. To do this, I blended Moon Lagoon and Swan Song on one finger and Swan Song and Cloud 9 on the other to make a trans pride flag gradient manicure. I'm only showing the first and last coat of each, but they blended pretty nicely by placing thin overlapping coats in the middle. I think this is because they are truly jelly polishes, so they're sheer enough to build without having to take out any special tools to make a gradient. And here's the first 3 polishes. I think Swan Song is my favorite out of the set, but the pink micro shimmer in Moon Lagoon pops really well in the sunlight, and I enjoy it when a cool color has a warm glow or vice versa, as it makes the shade just more complex. I do also love how the blue underglow of Swan Song comes out more in the shadow, which makes it more interesting than just a simple white polish. And since all of these polishes have a similar pearlescent texture, I wanted to add black flake over it to make it a little more varied. In general, I'm just a huge fan of Black Flake Taco as it adds a cookies and cream effect to a manicure, but it also pulls the lighter colors into a darker, potentially more grunge direction. I did also try a matte top coat over it to see what would happen. It looks like Moon Lagoon and Cloud 9 retain their shimmer, but the blue shimmer in Swan Song gets pretty lost when it's mattified. And before we go into the next set, it's time for what's on my other hand. I'm wearing Sagebrush by Mooncat with Lunar Unicorn Skin by Holo Taco over it. Sagebrush is a sage green thermal polish which shifts darker green when it's cold, and I wanted to add a unicorn skin on top to add a uniform shine over the gradient that tends to appear with thermal polish. Make sure to check out the short form video for this manicure if you haven't seen it already, and on to the rest of the collection. First up is Phantom Call. Holo Taco describes this polish as a purple mauve jelly base with an orange-pink micro shimmer in scattered holo. And spoiler alert, this one is my absolute favorite in the entire collection because this color is just so shifty. In this shot, the purple mauve comes out the most, with the micro shimmer pulling it slightly orange, but in other lighting, the micro shimmer will play with the base, pulling the polish to a golden or even green direction. Additionally, the inclusion of the scattered holo adds some, in my opinion, much needed texture variation to this collection. And for all these reasons, this is the first color that I want to wear on its own when it's time for me to change up my manicure. And lastly, while I did use a pink smoothing base for these 3 polishes, the opacity of this set was far stronger than the last. Specifically, this polish only needed 2 coats to get to full opacity. Moving on, we have Vitamin Glow, described as a light cornflower blue jelly base with a pink micro shimmer and scattered holo. I love how we finally have a nice cornflower blue from Holo Taco, as I see this one as a spiritual successor to the extremely sought after Bep Bep Blue from the Julian collab collection. Personally, I think the pink micro shimmer is slightly more red than pink, which honestly, I'm still a big fan of. And as I said before, a cool base color with a warm shimmer is my favorite combo, so I really like this color, especially because it has the scattered holo mixed in. This breaks up the sameness of the first 3 colors in the collection and gives it a much needed textural difference. Overall, this one is my 3rd favorite color in the collection, and I found it buildable in 3 coats. And last but certainly not least is Shadow Lake. Holo Taco describes this polish as a deep gray jelly base with a blue micro shimmer. Now this color was interesting. The dark gray base is more so the medium of the shimmer than a major aspect of the polish, as it is packed with the blue shimmer. As a result, this polish looks like it glows on the nail. This shimmer also has a blue to purple to sometimes pink multi-chrome aspect with it, and in some lighting, it will just look entirely different from what you see now. Here, it looks like it's a super impactful deep blue, while simultaneously somehow being this desaturated blue, I think due to the gray jelly base. This one was my 2nd favorite color in the collection, and Nail Husband's favorite.
Yay!
And finally, this was buildable in 3 coats. And like before, I tried to make a quick blend between the colors to make a full hand manicure. I found that these polishes did not love being blended this way, and it took several very thin coats to get a smooth blend. I think this is because these polishes had a stronger opacity than the last, and so just putting simple thin coats wasn't really enough to make a smooth gradient. If I was going to do this differently, I would use a fan brush to establish a blend better. Comment below if you want to see that tutorial. And here are the final 3 colors. I cannot get over how cool Phantom Call on my thumb is. In direct sunlight, it almost looks like a very bright yellow teal polish, but then in the shade, the mauve stands out the best. What's interesting is the pink shimmer in Vitamin Glow looks more yellow in the direct lighting, making it an entirely different color. And for Shadow Lake, the blue shimmer explodes in the sunlight, leaving some of the deep gray behind, making this super interesting effect. And like last time, I wanted to see how they performed as a base layer to a combo manicure, so I added Aurora Unicorn Skin over them. Since Unicorn Skins work the best over darker colors, the effect was the most noticeable over Shadow Lake. But once again, Phantom Call transforming so much in direct light to shade made for a mesmerizing combo with a unicorn skin, and I want to experiment more with her in the future. Lastly, I tried adding a matte top coat as well to see what would happen. For the most part, it dulled all the colors like expected, but one thing that was super interesting is it made the blue glow in Shadow Lake more subdued, so you could see the gray base jelly layer a little better. And here is the entire collection. Stick around to the end of the video for my overall thoughts.
And now that you've seen all of them, why don't you comment below and tell me which one's your favorite? And seeing how these were jelly iridescent polishes, I want to try them over black, so let's get into that.
Over black polish, the iridescent shimmer should shine through more than the jelly layer, leading to an entirely different effect. I'm painting these in the same order I did them on my hands, and you can see how different the micro shimmer is from the jelly in all of these colors. I think that out of these, Cloud 9 and Phantom Call are the strongest over black. For Cloud 9, the cyan shimmer overpowers the pink and makes this gorgeous icy mermaid polish. As for Phantom Call, the shimmer shows the orange to green shift that shows in some lighting, giving this deep forest fire looking shade. As a reminder, these polishes are not designed to be toppers, but I hope that the micro shimmer glitters in these colors might show up again as a topper in a future collection. I would eat those up. Disclaimer, don't eat the nail polish.
And let's go on to some comparisons. Overall, all of these colors were very unique in my collection, so I had a very difficult time finding similar polishes or even trying to dupe them. For Moon Lagoon, Happily Ever Aqua from Holo Taco's most recent collection was the closest in terms of shade, but the texture was not there. Siren's Revenge from Mooncat is similar, but it pulls more teal and the glitters are just larger. I tried to dupe this with a retired Holo Taco shade as the base layer and a pink shimmer topper, but it's nowhere near Moon Lagoon, so I would say I did not dupe this at all. For Swan Song, I have several white shimmery polishes, but none of them have the same color of shimmer. So I tried to dupe this myself with not milky white shimmer with freezer burn over it. The problem is that freezer burn when over a lighter color shows the opposite color of the shimmer, that being yellow, which makes the white base look like my teeth after my giant coffee in the morning. So I can say I didn't successfully dupe it. As I said earlier, I don't love pink polishes, and I wouldn't have them if I wasn't making these videos, so I don't really have a ton to compare to Cloud9. I tried to make my own with 2 shades of pink from Holo Taco with the green shimmer over it. Sweet Tooth was the closest in shade, but it really lacks the pearlescent shimmer that Cloud9 has, and if you see my previous videos, you can't dupe a shimmery polish by simply putting a shimmer over it, as it lacks the depth of the original polish. And before you rage comment, I promise I'm qualified to make these videos, even though looking at it now, it looks like I picked random colors for these comparisons. But in the bottle, there are far more similarities between these colors than there are on the nail. So even though Phantom Call is an incredibly unique polish that looks nothing like other things in my collection, the closest I could find is Absolutely Arcane by Prism Parade and Fields of Lavender by Mooncat. Absolutely Arcane has a similar shimmer, but is nowhere near as dense as Phantom Call, and Fields of Lavender has a similar base color, which is why I showed it here unmagnetized. All in all though, neither of these are even close to Phantom Call. Okay, on to the big one. Vitamin Glow got compared to all of my powder bluish polishes. The closest is After the Rain by Mooncat. It has a similar base color to Vitamin Glow, but it's slightly more saturated and pulls a little bit more purple. And while they have a similar shimmer, the micro glitters are so tiny in Holo Taco's micro glitter formula that they look more pearlescent than actual glitters. For the others in the comparison, none of them are that close. I did try to dupe it with Bep Bep Blue topped with Polar Princess. This one is less similar than I was initially expecting because Bep Bep Blue is far more saturated, making it an unsuccessful dupe attempt. Finally, we have Shadow Lake that was compared with some of my deep shimmery multi-chrome blues in my collection. The closest is Dark Night of the Soul by Mooncat, but it's missing that ghostly gray vibe that Shadow Lake has. And in case you're wondering why I didn't compare it to the bluest blue polish ever, House of Hades by Mooncat, that's because when putting the bottles next to each other, it shows that House of Hades is blue, while Shadow Lake leans purple, or maybe some gray in some lighting, making them very distinctly different. And you may have noticed, but my other hand changed, so it's time for What's on My Other Hand again! I was inspired by Kaiju's recent nail art where he made a set that looked like a mystical cloudy night, and I immediately saw how I could use this collection to make something similar. For this manicure, I used Shadow Lake as the sky in the background, and I wanted to feature my favorite, so I used Phantom Call as an accent nail. After building these up to full opacity, I went in with a small detail brush and made stars and a moon using Phantom Call. From there, I used Swan Song to gently dab on the clouds as a base layer, and then I went in with each of the other colors to add some color variation onto the clouds. I tried to keep the same color in roughly the same part of the cloud, so that way it looked like maybe the light was coming through pretty uniformly, creating a complete picture. Because of all of the organic shapes in this nail art, this was a surprisingly beginner-friendly manicure for how stunning it looks. And if you want to see a full tutorial, let me know. Also, I've had several people at work tell me that this is their favorite manicure that I've done, and I've been wearing it since I started making this video, and so far there's only a tiny little chip, so pretty good wear. So my overall thoughts is that I think this collection isn't necessarily for me. The collection feels very intentionally understated. Most of the polishes are lighter tones and are more demure, and let's be honest, that's just not who I am. You saw the opening of this video, right? I get it, I'm a lot. And while we were filming this part, Titan decided to be an absolute goblin and annoyed us non-stop until we gave him his dinner. I think the reason why Holo Taco made this collection is because their creme polishes with micro shimmer have been really successful in the past. For example, Spirit Fingers in the Sophia collab or Alien Infatuation in the Mars collection were very popular. So I think making an entire collection centered around micro shimmers is an amazing idea, but I would have loved to see this in a dark and moody direction.
I know that someone is going to absolutely love this collection, but unfortunately I'm not that someone. I still love you, Holo Taco. So let me know what you thought of all of this. How do you feel about the collection as a whole? Are there any that's a standout for you, like Phantom Call? Or is it a different polish? Don't forget to like and subscribe down below, and I'll see y'all in the next video. Bye! What's that?